hours, he would go to Commander Chen's office and tell her everything. He would deal with whatever happened, whether it was death, prison, or exile. It didn't matter. He couldn't deal with the guilt any longer. A message came in on his tablet, and it rang. Marcus almost didn't pay attention, but something made him look. It was from the Thaxians who were in charge of him, and it said, "Extraction initiated. Thanks for your help." Marcus's blood froze. Extraction? But the attack was not supposed to happen for another 48 hours. He had been stalling, giving them bits of information and trying to buy time while he figured out what to do. He looked at the security feeds he still had access to and felt like his world was falling apart. 3 teams of Thaxian infiltrators were breaking into 3 different places at the same time. Each team had 6 heavily armed operatives with technology that was decades ahead of what we have on Earth. The places they were breaking into were the decoy facility at Cheyenne Mountain, the Antarctica research station that was still being built, and, worst of all, the actual resonator facility beneath the Rocky Mountains. They were aware. Even though he tried to trick them, they knew exactly where the real facility was. Marcus picked up his communicator and dialed Commander Chen's emergency number. She picked up on the second ring, and even though it was early, her voice was alert. "Marcus? What is it?" "Commander, we're being attacked. 3 attacks at the same time on our facilities for gravitational research. The Thaxians have teams on the ground right now." There was a moment of silence, and then Sarah's voice became as hard as steel. "How do you know this?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Because I've been giving them information for the last 6 months. I am the mole. I'm sorry, Commander. I'm really, really sorry. But right now, you need to protect the resonator building. The main team is going there, and they have enough firepower to." "Where are you?" Sarah stopped him. "My place. But that doesn't matter. What matters is, stay there. I'm sending a team of security guards to get you. We'll talk about your betrayal later. I need all the information you have about these teams right now. Goals, numbers, and tools. All of it." "Commander, there isn't time to." "Then hurry up and talk." Dr. Elena Vasquez woke up to alarms she had hoped she would never hear 3 miles below the Rocky Mountains. The perimeter of the facility had been broken. Hostile forces were quickly moving through the outer security levels. She rolled out of bed, she had been sleeping on site more often than not lately, and ran to the control room. Thomas was already there, looking at security feeds. He said, 6 hostiles. They're using some kind of stealth tech. Our sensors barely picked them up until they were already through the first security checkpoint. They've killed 12 guards and are now on their way to the main reactor. Not the resonator?" Elena asked, shocked. "They're breaking up. 3 are going to the resonator and 3 are going to the reactor. We can't use the weapon if they cut off our power." Elena's mind was racing. "Close all the blast doors between here and the reactor. Send emergency power to the resonator. If we lose main power, we need to be able to fire. And wake everyone up. I want all scientists and technicians to be armed and ready. Elena, we are scientists, not soldiers. Today we are both. Get out of the way." Elena got into the facility's defense systems, which she had said were unnecessary and would never be needed. Thank God the military said no to her. She turned on the complex's automated defenses, which included reinforced blast doors, electrified barriers, and even some experimental directed energy weapons that the R&D department had been working on. She watched the Thaxian intruders move through the building on the security feeds with terrifying ease. They were almost 7 feet tall, and their armor sparkled with adaptive camouflage. They had weapons that shot some kind of particle beam that cut through walls and doors like they were made of paper. One of them aimed some kind of scanner at a closed blast door. The door, which was 3 feet thick and made of reinforced titanium, blew up. The Thaxians moved through in a planned and practiced way. Thomas said, "They've broken through level 3. They need to get through 2 more levels to reach the resonator." Elena checked the resonator's status. It would take 5 minutes to get the system up and running, and even then, they couldn't fire it while enemy forces were so close. The gravitational backwash could kill everyone in the building. "We need to buy time," she said. "Turn on the fire suppression systems on the 3rd floor. Put halon gas in the hallways. That will use up all of our oxygen. Do it anyway." Level 3 was flooded with gas. Elena saw on the security feeds that the Thaxian infiltrators stopped and adjusted their visors to see better. They got about 30 seconds out of it. One of the people who broke in took out a device and put it on a wall. Elena knew what it was from intelligence briefings, a gravitic mine, a weapon that made a strong gravity well in a small area that could crush anything nearby into a singularity. They're going to bring down the tunnel. Thomas yelled. The mind turned on. Reality changed. The hallway bent in on itself, and the stone and metal squished into shapes that were impossible before collapsing into a point of infinite density. When it was over, there was a ball of compressed matter the size of a basketball where 20 feet of hallway used to be. The Thaxians walked around it like it was nothing. They have our technology, Elena said. They figured out how to control gravity by looking at it backwards. That's not possible. We've kept everything secret. How could they? Elena cut him off and said, later. We need to stop them right now. She made a choice that scared her. Thomas, get the resonator up and running. Full power. There are people in the facility, Elena. If we fire now. I know. But if we don't, the Thaxians will take over the weapon, and Earth will lose its only defense. There aren't always good options. Thomas looked at her for a long time before nodding. His fingers moved quickly over the controls. Starting the startup sequence. 4 minutes and 30 seconds until full power. Elena opened a channel for everyone in the building. Everyone, this is Director Vasquez. We are turning on the resonator. You have 4 minutes to get to the safe areas. 4 minutes, I say again. Go now. She saw people running through hallways on the security feeds, trying to get to the reinforced safety chambers that were meant to withstand the stress of gravity. Some would make it. Some wouldn't. Elena tried not to think about the people who wouldn't. Commander Sarah Chen was in charge of the defense from a mobile command center that had been set up quickly 2 miles from the facility's secret entrance. Military units from 3 different countries were on their way to the scene, but they were only minutes away, and the battle would be over in seconds. Marcus Webb was sitting across from her in the same casual clothes he had on when security picked him up. He couldn't move his hands, but he could talk, and he was giving Sarah all the information he had about the Thaxian operation. They have 6 spies in the main building, Marcus said. But there is a backup team ready to go. The second team will step in if the first team fails. And if both teams fail, they have an orbital strike platform that can destroy the whole facility from space. Why would they destroy it if they want the tech? If they can't have it, they'll make sure no one else can either. The Thaxian Empire's way of thinking is simple, rule or kill. Sarah took this in. How long until the strike from space? The infiltration teams have half an hour to finish their job. The strike platform then moves into place. In 10 minutes, everything within 5 miles becomes a crater. Sarah looked at her watch. 23 minutes. We need to get rid of that strike platform. There's a cloak on it. Never will you find it in time. Maybe not. But I know someone who might be able to. Sarah opened a safe channel. This is Commander Chen speaking to the Andromedan flagship Harmony's Light. Can you hear me? There was a pause, and then High Counselor Velshaw's voice came through. Commander Chen. We have been keeping an eye on things. What can we do to help? There's a Thaxian strike platform in orbit, hidden from view and ready to fire on Earth. Can you see it? Stand by. It took 15 seconds. Then, confirmed. We know where the platform is. It is staying at an altitude of 450 kilometers above your current coordinates. Charging its weapons. Can you break it? We can. But Commander, if we shoot at a Thaxian military ship, the Andromedan Council will be in direct conflict with the Thaxian Empire. There will be consequences. Earth loses its main defense if you don't fire, and the Thaxians gain the upper hand in this area. That will also have consequences. Another break. Then Velshaw said something that Sarah would always remember, you're right. There are some things that are worth fighting for. Engaging target now. Sarah saw the Andromedan warships break formation and speed up toward the hidden Thaxian platform on her tactical display. As weapons charged, energy signatures rose sharply. The Thaxian platform knew it had been found, so it took off its cloak and started to move in a way that would help it get away. It was quick, but the Andromedan ships were even quicker. 3 concentrated beam weapons hit the platform at the same time, breaking through its hull and overwhelming its shields. The platform blew up in a bright flash that could be seen from the ground. Velshaw said, target destroyed. You're welcome, Commander. Thanks, Sarah said with all her heart. Earth won't forget this. The Thaxian Empire won't either. We just made it very clear that we are on your side. I hope you're worth it. Me too. Elena watched the resonator's power levels rise deep underground. 3 minutes until full activation. The Thaxian spies had made it to level 4. They would be at the resonator itself after one more level. Thomas said, all non-essential personnel are now in safe areas. But we still have 14 people on the way. They won't be able to do it. Elena shut her eyes. 14 lives against 7 billion. It wasn't a choice, it was a number. But that didn't help at all. Continue the activation sequence, she told them. The Thaxian intruders got past level 5 on the security cameras. Now they were in the same room as the resonator, and their guns were pointed at the huge machine that could tear space apart. One of them spoke, and even though the sound was distorted, Elena could hear the words, charges placed. Going off in 10 seconds. They weren't trying to take the technology. They were trying to kill it. 2 minutes until full power. Thomas yelled. We don't have 2 minutes. Elena shot back. Turn on now. Partial power, focused beam, target coordinates. This facility, level 5, section Delta. Elena, that's going to kill everyone on that level. Including the Thaxians. That's the point. Do it. Thomas thought about it for a second, but then his training kicked in. He moved his hands over the controls with practiced skill. Partial activation, now. The resonator came to life with a hum, not at full power, but with enough energy to do what needed to be done. Elena could feel it in her bones. The subsonic vibration that meant space-time was being pulled, twisted, and compressed. The Thaxian infiltrators looked up on level 5 as reality started to fold around them. Before the localized singularity formed, one of them was able to yell a warning. This was a point of darkness that grew and expanded, pulling everything toward it with an unbreakable force. The Thaxians turned on their personal shields, which are pieces of technology that protect them from energy weapons and physical attacks. But gravity didn't care about shields. One by one, they were pulled into the singularity. Their bodies stretched and compressed as they crossed the event horizon, and then they just stopped existing in any meaningful way. They also pulled in the explosive charges they had planted, which were crushed into tiny particles before they could go off. Level 5 was empty 3 seconds after Elena collapsed the singularity. Not gone, just empty. There was now a sphere of matter about the size of a marble in the air, holding all the people, equipment, and atoms that had been in that space. Target neutralized, Thomas said, his voice shaking. The people who broke in are gone. Elena sat down with a thud. They had won. They had stopped the attack. But the price? She asked quietly, what about the 14 people who were still leaving? Thomas looked at her with tears in his eyes after checking his displays. 12 made it to safe places. When we shot, 2 were still on level 6. The surge of gravity killed them right away. 2 lives. Elena told herself that things could have been worse. It could have been all of them. It could have been the whole building. It might have been the whole world. But because of her order, 2 people who had planned to have a normal day that morning were dead. Get their names, she said. Make sure their families are told in person. Make sure they get it. Make sure they know it was important. That their sacrifice saved the building. Yes, Elena got up and walked to the window that looked out over the resonator chamber. The big machine hummed softly, as if it were in standby mode, and looked innocent and calm. But she was aware of the truth now. The resonator was more than just a weapon. It was a duty. A load. And using it meant making decisions that would stay with her for the rest of her life. Commander Sarah Chen got word that all 3 Thaxian strike teams had been stopped, at least on the surface. The danger was gone. The most important place on Earth was safe. Sarah knew the real fight was just beginning when she saw Marcus Webb, the man who had betrayed them all, sitting with his head in his hands and crying. Now the galaxy knew something it didn't know before. Earth was ready to use its weapon. Earth would kill to stay safe. That made everything different. The effects of the Thaxian attack shook up Earth's political and military systems like an earthquake. Emergency meetings were held in capitals all over the world in the 72 hours after the attack. All the presidents, prime ministers, and generals asked the same thing. How had Earth's safety been so badly compromised? What were the Thaxians going to do next? And most importantly, what had people become? Commander Sarah Chen stood in front of a joint meeting of the United Earth Defense Council, knowing that her career, and maybe even her freedom, were on the line. There were representatives from every country in the council chamber in Geneva, and their faces showed anger, fear, and blame. Commander Chen, Secretary General Rodriguez began, his voice full of barely controlled rage. In the last 72 hours, we found out that your second-in-command was a Thaxian spy who put our safety at risk for 6 months. We've also found out that hostile forces broke into our most important facility and almost destroyed our main defensive weapon. Finally, we've confirmed that Dr. Vasquez used that weapon to kill 6 Thaxian operatives and 2 of our own personnel. Would you like to explain how this terrible security failure happened while you were in charge? Sarah stood up straight and looked him in the eye. I am completely to blame for Lieutenant Webb's betrayal. I chose him, and it was my fault. I should have seen the signs. General Martinez cut in. The signs? The man was in a lot of debt from gambling, and his sister needed expensive medical care. Those aren't subtle signs, Commander. Those are huge red flags that any good security review should have seen. You're right, Sarah said. Our security measures didn't work. I didn't do my job. 2 people died because of it. I'm ready to face whatever punishment this council thinks is fair. Consequences? Ambassador Liu said. Commander, this isn't about punishing you. It's about figuring out how to stop it from happening again. I promise you, the Thaxians aren't done. They'll try again, and next time they'll be better prepared. President Thompson's voice broke through the talk. She was there as a hologram from Washington, and her face was serious. The question for this council is simple. Do we keep Commander Chen in her current job, or do we find someone else who can guarantee better security? I want honest answers. The argument that followed was very bad. Some representatives said that Sarah should be taken out of command right away and maybe even charged with criminal negligence. Others stood up for her, saying that she had stopped the attack and saved the building in the end. The fight went on for 2 hours before President Thompson called for a vote. One vote decided the outcome. Sarah would stay in charge, but with a lot more supervision. A new Joint Security Council would look over all important choices, and Earth's intelligence services would be completely reorganized. Sarah felt both relieved and empty when the session ended. She had kept her job, but at what cost? There were 2 dead people. Marcus Webb was in a high-security prison waiting for his trial. And the relationship between Earth and the Thaxian Empire had gone from cold to possibly hot war. Marcus Webb was in an interrogation room at a high-security prison in the Swiss Alps that used to be a military bunker. There were 2 people there with him, Commander Sarah Chen and Dr. Elena Vasquez. There were no windows in the room, and the walls were strong. In just 3 days, Marcus looked like he had aged 10 years. Do you know how many people want you dead right now? Sarah asked directly. 4 to 7 different governments have asked me to have you killed as a traitor. The Chinese want to try you in Beijing, the Russians want you in Moscow, and that's just from our own species. 3 different alien civilizations have also formally asked for you to be handed over to them for judgment. Marcus looked at the table. I deserve whatever happens to me. That's not what I asked, Sarah said. I asked if you understood the political situation you've created. Your betrayal almost cost Earth its main defense. Your betrayal also gave the Thaxian Empire a lot more information about what we can do than we wanted them to have. And your betrayal killed 2 innocent scientists. Marcus looked up, tears streaming down his face. Yes, I know. I see their faces every time I close my eyes. Dr. Park and Dr. Reeves. They had families and lives, and they're gone because I was weak. For the first time, Elena spoke, and her voice was surprisingly soft. Marcus, I need you to understand something. What you did was unforgivable. But you're also the reason we survived. If you hadn't called Commander Chen when you did, if you hadn't warned us about the attack, the Thaxians would have succeeded. You betrayed us, but you also saved us. How am I supposed to reconcile those 2 facts? Marcus shook his head. You can't. I can't. There's no way to make things right. I'm a traitor who had a moment of conscience, but that doesn't change what I did. Yes, Sarah said. It doesn't. But it does make things harder. She took out a tablet and put it on the table. The intelligence agencies have been looking over the information you gave them. Based on what the Thaxians knew about our systems, they've found 17 other possible security holes. You're going to help us close those holes. You're going to tell us everything you know about Thaxian intelligence operations, their methods, their technology, and everything else. Then, when you've given us everything useful, you'll go to trial. And then execution, Marcus said in a flat voice. Probably, Sarah said. Marcus, I won't lie to you. What you did is punishable by death under wartime rules, and we're basically at war right now. But if you fully cooperate and help us stop future attacks, I'll argue for life in prison instead. It's not much, but it's something. Marcus thought about this. Why would you do that? Why would you try to save my life after everything I've done? Sarah was quiet for a moment before she spoke. Because you were a good officer for 6 years, even though everything went wrong. Because you made a terrible choice in a terrible situation. And because killing you won't bring back the people who died, it will just make one more victim. So yes, I'll fight for your life. Not because you deserve it, but because maybe, just maybe, we can be better than the people who put us in this situation. The galaxy was dealing with the effects on the outside while Earth was dealing with its own problems. The Thaxian Empire's failed attack had caused a diplomatic storm. High Councilor Velshar stood in front of the full assembly of 47 civilizations in the Andromedan Council chambers, defending her choice to destroy the Thaxian strike platform. The person from the Quanari Collective said, "You started a war. The Thaxian Empire won't let this attack on their military assets go unpunished. They'll want reparations or, even worse, revenge. The Thaxians started this war when they attacked Earth without any reason," Velshar said in response. "We just stopped them from finishing it. If this council won't protect innocent civilizations from aggression, then what good are we?" Another representative said, "The people aren't innocent. They've turned planetary singularities into weapons. They could destabilize the galaxy." Velshar said, "They're a threat to Thaxian dominance. That's why the Empire tried to get rid of them. And that's why we need to protect them. If we let the Thaxians destroy every civilization that makes technology that could be a threat, then we're not a council, we're just helping an empire." The debate went on for hours, but in the end, the council voted to officially condemn the Thaxian attack and offer Earth-protected status under Andromedan defense agreements. It was a close vote, only 25 of the 47 civilizations that voted for it did so. Earth now had strong friends. But it also had strong foes. Emperor Zalcroth was very angry when he heard that his strike team had failed on the Thaxian homeworld. He was in his throne room with his military advisors when he thought about the unthinkable. A species that didn't even have FTL travel a year ago had publicly humiliated the Thaxian Empire. He asked, how? How did a primitive species find our stealth teams, use our technology against us, and kill 6 of our best operatives? Admiral Hexval stepped up. "My lord, our intelligence was compromised. The human spy web gave them some correct information, but he also told them about the attack. By the time our teams got there, they were ready." "And what about the strike platform?" "Andromedan warships destroyed it. High Councilor Velshar gave the order for the attack." Zalcroth's face grew dark. "The Andromedans have picked a side. They have joined forces with the humans against us. This is not okay. My lord, if we make this fight worse, we could end up at war with the whole Andromedan Council. That's 47 civilizations, and many of them have strong military power. Are you saying we should do nothing?" Zalcroth asked in a threatening tone. "I'm saying we should be smart. The humans have one weapon, and it can only be used from Earth. If we can't take the weapon, we cut them off from the rest of the universe. We convince other civilizations that the humans are too dangerous to deal with. We make them outcasts. Then, when they're alone and cut off, we attack again. But this time, we don't send in small groups. We send in a fleet." Zalcroth thought about this. It was a long-term plan that needed time to work. But the Thaxian Empire had been around for 2,000 years, so they could wait. "Okay," he said. "Start diplomatic operations. I want every civilization in this sector to know that joining forces with Earth means joining forces with instability. Make them afraid of what humans stand for. And while you're doing that, I want our weapons research division to work on a way to counter their gravitational weapon. If they can control singularities, so can we. It will take time, my lord. Maybe years or even decades. Then will take years. The Thaxian Empire doesn't forget humiliation, Admiral. And we don't forgive it either. The humans will learn that showing power is easy. Keeping it is hard. And eventually, they'll make a mistake. When they do, we'll be ready." Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in her private office in the facility under the Rocky Mountains, looking at pictures of Dr. James Park and Dr. Rebecca Reeves. They were the 2 scientists who had died in the attack. From the frames, they smiled at her, frozen in happy times that would never happen again. Someone knocked on her door. "Come in," she said. Dr. Thomas Park came in. He was not related to the dead James Park, but the fact that they had the same name made things worse. "Elena, I finished looking into the Nexus Points activity. You need to see this." Elena turned away from the pictures. "How bad?" "Bad. The Nexus Point's energy output has gone up by 17% since we used the weapon, and the rate of increase is getting faster. If this keeps up, we'll have a critical instability in 4 months. 4 months? You said we had at least 6 months 2 weeks ago, Thomas. That was before we turned on the resonator at half power during the attack. Elena, every time we use the weapon, we make the Earth's gravitational core a little less stable. It's like hitting a bell over and over again. Eventually, the vibrations add up and the bell breaks. Elena sat down with a thud. What will happen if the nexus point becomes very unstable? Best case, we can't use the resonator anymore and the weapon stops working. Worst case, the nexus point makes an uncontrolled singularity that eats up the whole planet. Earth gets squished into a sphere about the size of a city block. That's not the worst case. That's a scenario for extinction. I know. That's why we need to find a way to stabilize it quickly. Elena brought up a holographic picture of the core of the Earth. The nexus point pulsed more and more, like a heart that was beating too fast. What if we can't make it stable? What if using the weapon to protect Earth is really destroying it? Thomas said quietly, then we have a very big problem. Without the weapon, we're open to attack. But with it, we might be bringing about our own destruction. It's a no-win situation. For a long time, Elena stared at the screen. She then made a choice. We need to tell people. The Security Council, President Thompson, and Commander Chen. They need to know that our biggest weapon could also be our biggest threat. That information could make people panic. It could weaken our entire defense. If our enemies find out the weapon isn't stable, then they'll know the truth, Elena said to end. Thomas, I'm sick of secrets. I'm sick of making choices that kill people. We're scientists, not soldiers. We're supposed to seek the truth, not hide it. So let's tell the truth and let the people in charge figure out what to do with it. The next day, the emergency meeting took place. As Dr. Elena Vasquez talked about her findings, Commander Sarah Chen, President Thompson, and representatives from 12 other countries sat in a secure conference room. It was easy to guess what would happen: shock, then anger, and finally questions about how to fix things. You're telling us, President Thompson said slowly, that every time we use our main weapon of defense, we're putting Earth in more danger. Yes, Madam President. The nexus point was never meant to be turned on and off again. It has been dormant for billions of years, in perfect balance. When we force it to form singularities, we're upsetting that balance. And the more we use it, the harder it is to keep things stable. Can you fix it? General Martinez asked. I don't know. We're trying to come up with theoretical solutions, but we're dealing with forces we don't fully understand. It's like we're kids playing with nuclear weapons. We know how to make them explode, but we don't really know what we're doing. Then we have to stop using the weapon, Ambassador Liu said. Right away. Before we hurt ourselves by accident. General Martinez asked, and leave Earth defenseless. The Thaxians are getting ready to attack again. Do you think they'll be nice and wait while we fix our tech issues? The argument got out of hand quickly, with voices rising as different groups pushed for different solutions. Some people wanted to stop all resonator operations right away. Some people said that the weapon was too important to give up. Some people even said that everyone should leave Earth completely, but no one could say where 7 billion people would go. Finally, President Thompson raised a hand to ask for silence. That's enough. What do you suggest, Dr. Vasquez? Elena knew this question was coming, so she had thought carefully about how to answer it. We need to take a multi-pronged approach. First, we keep researching how to stabilize the nexus point. We put all of our resources into figuring out how to control it safely. Second, we come up with other ways to defend ourselves. We can't just rely on the resonator, we need backup systems and redundancy. And third, we speed up our diplomatic efforts. The best way to avoid using the weapon is to stay out of situations where we need to use it. So you think we should make peace with the Thaxians? Someone asked in disbelief. Elena said, I'm telling you to be friends with everyone else. The Andromedan Council has already promised to protect us. There are dozens of other civilizations out there that might be willing to trade, ally, or work with us. The more friends we have, the less likely anyone is to attack us, and the less likely we are to need a weapon that could kill us all. That was a good way to go about it. Everyone in the room also knew that they were desperately hoping they could get through an impossible situation without making any more terrible mistakes. The meeting ended with a list of orders. Give more money to research on gravity, speed up the development of traditional defense systems, and reach out to every civilization that seemed even a little bit friendly. But Sarah Chen pulled Elena aside as people were leaving the conference room. You didn't say anything about the elephant in the room. Which one? Elena asked in a tired voice. We have a few. Should we have even shown the weapon? Should we have just let the Velnari humiliate us and stayed hidden and safe? For a moment, Elena was quiet. I've thought about that a lot. And you know what I've come to? It doesn't matter. We can't change the past. The galaxy knows about the weapon now, and we have to deal with the consequences, whatever they may be. Even if those consequences mean the end of the world. Yes, even then, Elena said. Living as a subject species, accepting humiliation, and letting bullies like the Thaxians do whatever they want isn't living. It's just existing. Humanity didn't crawl out of caves and reach for the stars just to bow down to anyone with better technology. We have a right to stand up for ourselves. We just need to figure out how to do it without hurting ourselves in the process. Sarah smiled a little. You know, you're a pretty philosophical scientist. I've had a hard few months. It helps you see things from a different angle. They stood together in the empty hallway, two women who felt like they were carrying the weight of the whole world on their shoulders. They wondered if they were strong enough to handle it. They both knew that the answer would come soon enough. 3 months after the Thaxian attack, Earth was in a place that would have seemed impossible a year before, at the center of galactic politics, dealing with dozens of civilizations, each with its own goals and needs. The Andromedan Council's offer of protected status was both a good thing and a bad thing. On the one hand, Earth now had strong allies who had shown they were willing to protect people. But those allies wanted something in return. They wanted more than just thanks. They wanted cooperation, integration, and eventually, cultural and technological exchange that would change what it meant to be human. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked over the most recent information on the nexus point in the underground facility. She felt both hopeful and worried. There had been a breakthrough in the last 3 months, or at least the start of one. Dr. Thomas Park said, the harmonic dampening fields are working, and for the first time in weeks, his voice was full of real excitement. We've been able to lower the nexus point's energy fluctuations by almost 30%. It's getting more stable. Elena looked at the graphs, not sure if she should believe them. How long? Not sure. But the trend line is going up. If we can keep these dampening fields and not use the resonator at full power, we might be able to keep the nexus point stable forever. Maybe? Science doesn't deal in certainties, Elena. You know that. But I'm cautiously optimistic. We're learning how to live with this thing inside our planet. How to coexist with a dormant singularity that we can wake up when needed but keep controlled when we don't. Elena thought it was a perfect metaphor for how people are right now. They had awakened a power they didn't fully understand, and now they were learning to deal with what had happened. With a datapad in hand, Dr. Sarah Kim walked into the control room. Elena, we got a message from the Velnari. Chief Engineer Zalthor wants to come to Earth and talk about something important. Elena raised an eyebrow. Since they had to leave Earth space in shame, the Velnari had been very quiet. Most intelligence analysts thought they were ashamed and had given up on humanity as a lost cause. Did he tell you what he wants to talk about? No. But his message was polite. There was no mocking or condescension. He called us the esteemed scientists of Earth, and asked for a collegial exchange of knowledge. This is a complete 180 from how he acted before. Thomas said, that makes it look suspicious. Or real, Elena said in response. Sometimes being humbled teaches you respect. Let the visit happen, but let's make sure Commander Chen is safe. Just because someone is polite doesn't mean they're telling the truth. A week later, Chief Engineer Zalthor of the Velnari Collective stepped off a diplomatic shuttle and onto the ground on Earth for the first time. He only had 2 advisors with him and no weapons, which was a big sign of trust in galactic diplomacy. Commander Sarah Chen met him at the place where he landed outside of Geneva. She had thought about whether to meet him in uniform or regular clothes and had finally decided on uniform. This was as much a military issue as it was a diplomatic one. Chief Engineer Zalthor, she said in a formal way. Welcome to Earth. Zalthor bowed, which is a sign of respect among the Velnari that Sarah had learned about in her briefing. Commander Chen, thank you for seeing me. I know my last visit to your world was not good. That's one way to put it. Zalthor said, I like to use the word educational. He may have smiled to make fun of himself. I learned a lot about people and how dangerous it is to be arrogant. They went into a secure conference room where Dr. Elena Vasquez and her team were waiting. The meeting that followed was unlike any other first contact situation in human history. This was not because aliens were no longer rare, but because both sides were truly trying to understand each other instead of trying to show who was in charge. Zalthor started by saying he was sorry. Dr. Vasquez, I made fun of your work and called your species primitive. I was completely wrong, and 6 months ago, you had every right to destroy my ship and everyone on it. You showed mercy. Why? Elena thought about her answer for a long time. We didn't want to destroy you. We wanted to show you that humanity deserves to be taken seriously. Killing you would have made us feared, but not necessarily respected. A subtle difference, Zalthor said. But an important one. For the past 3 months, my civilization has been arguing about what happened here. We've looked at your weapon, studied the physics involved, and come to a humbling conclusion. We've been living off the successes of our ancestors for thousands of years. We mastered anti-gravity so long ago that we stopped trying to understand the fundamental nature of gravity itself. We skipped the problem instead of solving it. He brought up a holographic screen with hard equations on it. Your species had to deal with gravity every day, which gave you a deeper understanding than we ever had. You remember something we've forgotten, that limitations can lead to new ideas and that working through a problem teaches you more than avoiding it. Thomas bent over. Are you saying that the Velnari want to work together on research about gravity? All I'm saying is that we want to learn from you. In return, we want to share what we know about anti-gravity technology. Not as a trade, but as a trade between colleagues. Between equals. When I heard the word equals, it rang like a bell. What changed? Sarah asked in a straightforward way. 6 months ago, you couldn't stop making fun of us. Now you want to work with us. What changed? Zalthor's face turned serious. I went home and told my people what I saw. I showed them the recordings of your weapon. Do you know what the response was? It wasn't just from the Velnari, it was from dozens of civilizations across the galaxy. He stopped. Fear. Not of your weapon specifically, but of what it represents. The idea that any sufficiently motivated species, working with the constraints of their environment rather than bypassing them, might discover capabilities that more advanced civilizations have overlooked. You've proven that technological superiority isn't the same as wisdom. And that's terrifying to civilizations that have grown comfortable in their superiority. Elena said, so you want to learn from us before someone else does? Yes. But also because it's the right thing to do. Commander, my civilization has been stuck for centuries. We've been so focused on keeping our place in the galactic hierarchy that we've stopped innovating, exploring, and learning. You've reminded us what it means to push boundaries, and for that, we're grateful. The meeting lasted 3 hours and talked about ways to work together, share information, and protect each other. In the end, Earth had not only found a possible ally, but also a partner who treated them with real respect. Before Zalthor left, he said something that Elena would quote in speeches for years to come. Never apologize for the things that made you who you are. They might be what makes you special. Even though diplomatic victories were being won, the Thaxian Empire was still a threat. Emperor Zalcroth was more dangerous than an enemy who acted quickly because he was patient and planned ahead. Analysts at the Safe Intelligence Center under Geneva kept an eye on Thaxian movements all over the sector. What they found was worrisome. Director Harper of the Global Intelligence Agency said, they're building something. We found huge energy signatures near the Thaxian homeworld. The construction is on a scale we've never seen before. Whatever it is, it's big. Sarah asked, could it be a weapon? Almost certainly. We think they are working on their own version of technology that lets them control gravity. If they succeed, then we lose our strategic edge, Sarah said. How long until it works? Not known. It could take months or years. The Thaxians are being very careful to keep their building hidden from view. Sarah brought up a star map that showed where the Thaxian Empire was. It was huge, with 17 star systems, hundreds of billions of people, and military power that was much stronger than anything Earth could field normally. The only thing that stopped the Thaxians from invading Earth was the resonator. But that threat went away when they made their own gravity weapon. Sarah thought, we need intelligence. We need real intelligence, not just sensor readings and guesses. We need to know what they are building and how close they are to finishing it. Harper asked, how do you think we should get that information? We can't just send spies right into the middle of the Thaxian Empire. Can't we? Sarah asked as she opened a file on her tablet. Marcus Webb has been very helpful in our investigation. He has given us a lot of information about how Thaxian intelligence works, such as how they hire people, how they talk to each other, and how they keep things safe. Harper's face showed that he understood right away. You want to use him? I want to give him a choice. He can stay in prison for the rest of his life, or he can try to make things right by getting information on the Thaxian weapon project. It's dangerous, and he might die, but it's a chance for redemption. That's not nice, Commander. That's practical. And it's better than he deserves. The two scientists who died because he betrayed them don't get a chance to make things right. He does. I call that mercy. Marcus Webb got the offer in his cell with a mix of hope and acceptance. Commander Chen made it clear, get into the Thaxian Empire, find out what they're working on with their weapons, and send that information back to Earth. If he was successful, he would only have to serve the time he had already served. If he failed, at least he would die trying to help instead of spending the rest of his life in jail. Why would the Thaxians trust me? Marcus asked. I also betrayed them. I told you about the attack. Sarah said, you have to tell them you had no choice. That you were caught and forced to cooperate. That you want revenge on Earth for destroying the life you'd built. They'll be skeptical at first, but you have one thing that makes you valuable, you actually did work for them. You have genuine intelligence to offer. Some of it will be outdated by now, but some will still be current. Enough to establish your bona fides. For a long time, Marcus didn't say anything. If I do this, I won't ever come home, will I? Probably not. Even if you win, the Thaxians will figure out that you tricked them. The best thing that could happen is that you find a way to disappear into the galaxy and start a new life far away from Earth and the Empire. The worst thing that could happen is that. I know what the worst case is, Marcus said in a low voice. I've been through it. This can't be worse than knowing I killed 2 people. His eyes were red but clear as he looked up at Sarah. I'll do it. Not because I think it'll make up for what I've done or because I think I'll be forgiven. I'll do it because someone has to, and I owe Earth at least that much. Sarah nodded. We're leaving in 3 days. Use that time to say goodbye to your sister. Tell her you love her and everything else you wish you'd said before this all started. Dr. Elena Vasquez made a discovery that would change everything while Marcus got ready for his dangerous mission. She had been looking at the nexus point's harmonic patterns when she saw something amazing. The patterns weren't random. They were set up in a way that was almost like words. Thomas, look at this, she said as she pulled up the waveform analysis. These changes in gravity coming from the nexus point. They happen at regular intervals, though not perfectly so. But they happen often enough that they can't be natural. Thomas looked at the patterns, and his face grew more and more shocked. Elena, are you saying that the nexus point is trying to talk to us? I'm saying it might not be a natural event at all. What if the nexus point isn't just a gravitational anomaly? What if it was put there by someone or something billions of years ago? The effects were mind-boggling. If the nexus point was fake, then it wasn't a weapon made by Earth. Someone else owned it, and people had just found it and figured out how to turn it on. Elena said, we need to figure out what these patterns mean. We need to know what the nexus point is trying to tell us. They worked all night, putting the gravitational patterns through every language analysis program they had. Nothing worked. The patterns didn't look like any way of talking that we know of. Dr. Sarah Kim was the one who finally made a big discovery. What if we're looking at this the wrong way? What if it's not language in the usual sense? What if it's more like a warning label or an instruction manual? They changed the data's format to look for patterns that might be diagrams or schematics instead of words. They found it there, hidden in the changes in gravity, a blueprint. A plan. Directions for something much more complicated than they had ever thought. Thomas whispered, oh my God. The nexus point isn't just a weapon. It's a tool. It's part of a network, and there are more of them. Elena brought up a holographic image based on the patterns they had figured out. It showed hundreds of points all over the galaxy, each one a possible nexus point that needed to be turned on and linked to the others. Someone made a network of gravity that spans the whole galaxy, Elena said. Billions of years ago. And we just turned on one part of it. Who? Sarah Kim asked. Who could make something like this? I don't know. But whoever they were so far beyond what we know about physics that we're like ants trying to figure out a computer. They looked at the holographic display, trying to understand how big what they had found was. Earth's unique gravitational anomaly was not at all unique. It was a piece of old technology that had been left behind by a civilization so advanced that we couldn't even begin to understand their reasons or methods. Thomas said, we need to tell people about this. This changes everything. The weapon isn't ours. We're just caretakers. We're only using technology we don't understand for a short time. Or, Elena said slowly, we keep this to ourselves. For now. Because if the galaxy finds out that there are hundreds of these things out there, every major power will start looking for them. We'll trigger a gravitational arms race that could destroy entire worlds. There was no way to make a choice. Should you keep information that could shake the galaxy hidden, or should you share it and watch civilizations fight over ancient weapons they can't control? Before they could make a choice, alarms went off all over the building. The emergency channel showed Commander Chen's face, and she looked serious. Dr. Vasquez, we have a problem. The Thaxian Empire just sent a message to the whole galaxy. They say they've tested their own gravitational weapon, which they call Project Singularity, and they're threatening Earth with consequences beyond imagining if it doesn't give up control of the resonator. Elena felt like her world was falling apart. They had worked hard and made sacrifices, and now they were up against an enemy who was just as strong as they were. Commander, is it possible for them to build what they say they can? Intelligence says yes. The energy signatures are the same as what we've seen from the resonator. They've done it, Elena. They've turned gravity into a weapon. Elena shut her eyes. The arms race she had been afraid of had already started, and there was no way to stop it now. Then we have to make a choice, she said softly. Should we fight? Should we give up? Or should we look for a third option that no one has thought of yet? Sarah's voice was like steel. We find the third option. People didn't fight their way to the stars just to bow down to bullies. Doctor, gather your team. We have work to do. Earth got ready like never before in the days that followed. Only a few people knew about the discovery of the ancient gravitational network. But the Thaxian Empire's threat was real, public, and scary right away. The Andromedan Council and a few smaller civilizations that were sick of Thaxian aggression offered military help. But everyone knew that if there was a war, millions, maybe even billions, would die. Elena and her team worked day and night to figure out everything the Nexus Point network could do. If they could turn on multiple nodes at once, could they make a defensive grid that would protect not only Earth but also many other worlds? Marcus Webb left on his mission with fake Thaxian credentials and a cover story that might be believable enough to work. He knew he was probably going to die, but for the first time in months, he felt like he was doing something good. And on planets that people on Earth had never heard of, other species started to notice strange things happening with gravity beneath their planet's surfaces. The old network was waking up, one node at a time, and no one knew what would happen when it was fully online. Elena stood in front of the resonator in the underground facility and thought about how they had gotten there. 6 months ago, the galaxy didn't care about people. Now they were in the middle of events that could change the course of civilization in space. Pandora's box is open, she said to Thomas, who was next to her. Maybe, he said. But maybe that's what Pandora's box was for. Maybe we need to open some things, even if we don't know what will happen. That's either very wise or very bad philosophy. I'm not sure which. Why not both? Elena smiled even though she didn't want to. That's a fair point. The intercom said Commander Sarah Chen's name. Dr. Vasquez, we got a message. It's from the Thaxian Empire. The Emperor Zalcroth wants to talk to you. Elena took a big breath. Let him in. The holographic display showed the Emperor's face. It was cold, calculating, and completely sure of itself. Dr. Vasquez, I've heard a lot about you. The woman who turned a planet into a weapon. Emperor Zalcroth, I've heard of you too. The man who is about to start a war he can't win. Can't I? Zalcroth smiled. I also have weapons that use gravity. We're on the same level. Are we? Because I know something you don't. The nexus points, the gravitational anomalies we've been using, they're not natural. They're artificial. Part of an ancient network built by a civilization far more advanced than either of ours. And when that network fully activates, everyone who's been playing with forces they don't understand is going to face consequences neither of us can imagine. Zalcroth's smile went away. You're lying. Am I? Then tell me why gravitational anomalies are showing up on dozens of worlds across the galaxy. Tell me why the energy patterns are exactly like what we're seeing in Earth's core. Tell me why anyone with a good sensor array can find them if they know what to look for. The Emperor didn't say anything for a long time. If what you're saying is true, then we're all in trouble. Yes. That's why this war you're planning is pointless. We're not enemies, Emperor. We're just kids playing with weapons we don't understand, left behind by beings who might as well be gods. The question is, do we fight each other and possibly destroy ourselves? Or do we work together to understand what we found before it's too late? It was a risk. Elena had just given secret information to an enemy country, hoping that the threat of mutual destruction would be enough to get them to work together. Zalcroft looked at her through the holographic projection. Doctor, you're either very brave or very stupid. I'm a scientist, and I follow the evidence, even when it scares me. The evidence says we need to work together, not because we like each other, but because the other option is extinction. Another quiet moment. Then, I need proof. Send me your information on these ancient networks. If it's real, we'll talk about how we can work together. But Doctor, if you're lying to me, I'll make sure Earth regrets it. Send your scientists. Let them check the data themselves. But do it quickly, Emperor, because I don't think we have much time. The conversation was over. Thomas stared at Elena with big eyes. Did you just stop a war by scaring a galactic emperor? I hope so. If not, I just gave him another reason to attack us. Well, Thomas said, I guess we'll see. The last few days before the network was fully up and running were a blur of activity. Thaxian scientists came to Earth, worked with human researchers, and confirmed what Elena had found. Dozens of other worlds also confirmed this. The old gravitational network was real, it stretched across the galaxy, and it was coming back to life. No one knew what it would do when it was fully up and running. The best theory said it could be a transportation system that used gravity to make tunnels through space that opened up right away. Some of the worst theories said it might be a weapon made to wipe out any civilization that was smart enough to use it. It was like a cosmic reset button made by beings who wanted to make sure the galaxy never got too crowded with intelligent life. They could only wait and hope they had made the right choices. When the network was fully up and running, Elena was in the resonator control room with scientists from a dozen different civilizations. People, Velnari, Andromedans, and even a Thaxian team sent by Emperor Zalcroth himself. Everyone was watching as the nexus point under Earth began to pulse in time with hundreds of other points in the galaxy. And then, in a moment that would be remembered by every civilization that traveled through space, the network spoke. Not in words, but in pure information sent directly through gravitational waves that every intelligent being with the right technology could feel. The network was built by an ancient civilization, and this was their message. They left a message billions of years ago, waiting for the day when younger species would be smart enough to get it. The message was clear. We built this network to connect all worlds that can manipulate gravity. You have reached the threshold of true galactic civilization. What you do next will determine your fate. Use this power for unity or destruction. The choice has always been yours. We cannot make it for you. But know this, the civilizations that survived to join us chose unity. Those that chose destruction are dust. We hope you choose wisely. The message was over. The network stayed active, quietly pulsing, waiting for its new users to decide how to use it. In the control room, species that had been enemies just a few hours before looked at each other in a new way. They had a choice and a warning. And for the first time, they really got that they were all asking the same thing. What kind of galaxy did they want to build? 6 months later, the end. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the new Unity Station, a joint facility in orbit around Earth where scientists from 40 different civilizations worked together to study the gravitational network. There had been more change in the last 6 months than in the last 100 years. The Thaxian Empire had backed down from its threats and decided to work together instead of trying to take over. The Andromedan Council had added Earth as a full member, not just a protected species. And many smaller civilizations had made new friends, partnerships, and alliances. It wasn't great. There were still problems, still fights, and still civilizations that wouldn't work together. But it was better. Better in a way that can be measured. Dr. Elena Vasquez asked, "Are you thinking deep thoughts?" as she joined her at the window. "Just thinking about how far we've come. A year ago, we were a joke. Now we're helping to change the way people live in the galaxy." Elena smiled and said, "Don't let it go to your head. We were lucky. If the old network hadn't turned on when it did, we might be in the middle of a war right now. Maybe. Or maybe we made our own luck. Maybe showing the galaxy that humans wouldn't back down, that would fight for ourselves even when the odds were against us, maybe that's what made things change." "Maybe," Elena said. They sat in silence and watched as a Velnari research ship docked with the station. It brought new scientists to study the mysteries of manipulating gravity. Elena asked, "Have you heard from Marcus?" Sarah's face got a little cloudy. 3 weeks ago was the last transmission. He's deep in Thaxian territory, still gathering information. He says he's found something important, but he couldn't send any details. I'm starting to worry he won't make it back. Would you still want him to come back after all that's happened? Yes, Sarah said after a pause. Because he messed up, but is trying to fix it. And what kind of society are we building if we can't forgive people who really want to do better? Dr. Thomas Park was giving a lecture to a group of people and aliens far away from the station. He was talking about the newest ideas about the ancient civilization that built the network. His students, young beings from 100 different worlds, listened closely as they learned, worked, and dreamed about what they could do together. In the Thaxian Empire, Emperor Zalcroth read reports from his science division and reluctantly agreed that working with Earth had brought about results that his aggressive approach could never have achieved. He didn't like people because they were still too unpredictable and too willing to take risks, but he did respect them. And in the politics of the galaxy, respect was more important than fear. And on Earth, in the underground facility under the Rocky Mountains, the resonator hummed quietly while it was on standby power. Ready if needed, but less and less so. People had learned something important. The strongest weapon wasn't the one that killed enemies. It was the one that made enemies not needed. Deep in Earth's core, the Nexus Point pulsed in time with hundreds of other points across the galaxy. These points were part of a network built by beings who had already learned what younger species were just starting to learn. That gravity, the force that held planets together, bound stars into galaxies, and even curved spacetime itself, was really about connection, not separation. And if a species could learn to use gravity as a weapon, maybe they could also learn to use it for what it was meant to do. Bring things together instead of tearing them apart. Now, the galaxy was looking at Earth. But they weren't laughing anymore. They were getting smarter.